Yeah, says it's streaming.
It's getting, I'm getting it ready. It's loading or whatever it does.
There's a message on my screen that says meeting's now streaming.
Oh, perfect. All right. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is the June 11th meeting of the Planning and Development Board Project Review Committee meeting. I'm Lisa Nicholas. I'm city staff.
Mitch Glass, member of the board.
Sorry, Emily Katrina, member of the board.
All right. I see the applicants for the special permit in, so I'm going to let them in to the meeting. Hi, Priscilla. You're muted.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Good morning.
Hi.
Did you hear the introductions?
No, I was just let in now.
Okay, I'm Lisa Nicholas. I'm city staff.
Hi, nice to meet you finally.
And we have Mitch Glass and Emily Petrina, members of the planning board.
Hi.
Morning.
So does the board or the committee have any questions about this project?
Maybe Priscilla, you could just explain in a couple sentences what we're looking at here. I have the application, but first time seeing it.
Sure. We have a very small studio apartment in the basement floor of our house, which was recently inspected, and I think the square footage is 275 square feet, not including the bathroom. It has a Murphy bed. It's a double-sized Murphy bed, and a little kitchen, like a little kitchenette, and a living space. That's all just one space. And we attached photos. It has a separate entrance in the back as well. And we were just looking to have it converted to the legal accessory apartment status, I guess. I think that's it. My husband's here as well.
Sorry, our toddler is not having any of other people watching her right now.
Understood. So are there any physical changes to the exterior of the house, or is it mostly just the interior?
Nope. When we bought the house about 5 years ago, it was already, there was already a, I'm not sure what they called it, but there was already a little kitchen and the space had already been finished. But then we finished it properly many years ago. And we've just had our in-laws use it and friends stay over. But, so there's no changes that need to be done on the outside. And it looks like there's not even an apartment in there, I think, based on the exterior photos that we shared.
And it just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask about parking. Would there be on-site parking for the additional units?
Yep. There was one of the, I tried to take a picture that showed it to scale, but I don't think I did a great job. So there's in our driveway, there's a big shed. And if you pull right up to the shed, there's enough space to park we have a Highlander. So there's enough space to park our Highlander and still have the 2 cars that are parked in the garage be able to get around. So there would be enough, regardless of what kind of car folks had, there would be enough space. I don't think you could put 2 cars in that driveway, but I wouldn't voluntarily put 2 humans in 275 square feet either. So
You're only required to have 1 extra space for the apartment. So.
Okay, great.
So this seems mostly procedural. I don't know that the board would have
Yeah.
many additional questions since there's no physical changes. You know, it's a nice apartment. Anything else you thought?
I do have one question. Did you, I'm asking the applicants, have you been in touch with the building division about code compliance?
Yeah, yep.
And what have you heard so far?
Well, I submitted a building permit.
Okay.
Yeah, for, and Robert, or Rob.
Oh, yep. Mhm. Rob.
Said that there would be a pre-inspection, so we knew exactly what fire safety codes
Okay.
we needed to comply with. And then we would just get moving on, you know, putting in the fire door or whatever needed to happen on the inside.
So just have to, you should schedule that pre-inspection and I'll talk to Rob for before the planning board meeting.
Okay.
And so that can, whatever approval would be conditioned upon doing whatever code compliance things you would have to do.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, this seems fine. I have no other comments. I think it's great. Good luck with, renting the apartment, and it's always good to provide another unit on the market for people who need it. So I agree with Emily. There's not really that much else to talk about.
I agree. All right. If we have nothing else, you're free to go.
All right.
Good
Thank you
luck.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you. See you.
So I do not see the applicants for 209 Hudson Street in the waiting room, but I feel like we can talk about this without them. Let's see, I do see Frank Santelli, but as far as I know, he's not involved. So did you understand the information that I gave to you? Do you have any questions? This is basically came to the board in 2016. The board worked for many months with the applicant to make the project into more of a family-friendly, less student-oriented apartment, and finished the environmental review and did just environmental review, completed the environmental review, and then BZA denied the variance for the existing side yard deficiency on the existing buildings, which didn't allow them to subdivide the property, which they needed to do because of the South Hill Overlay District. And so it's been in court for 18 months, and now it's been decided that the city needs to allow the subdivision and allow the variance. The BZA already granted the variance. The board has to grant the subdivision, but the board can still have influence if they want more input onto the site plan. So.
I remember seeing this project. It was one of the first.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
2017.
Yeah.
When
We
they
both did.
showed it to us.
Oh, you both did? Okay, so
Nobody
did you
first
go
time.
through? Okay, all right.
Yep. So I remember the units in the yard, and the trees. There were some large evergreen trees that would be taken down, and the modifications they made to make it more family friendly. I remember that.
Yep.
And then it went away into the courts. And so I assume that the proposal that we're getting back is exactly the same, unchanged. Is that true from the last submittal a couple of years ago?
I have not been notified of any changes to the project. If there were changes, we should know this by the planning board meeting. But I feel like unless there are changes to the footprint or the layout, the board could still do preliminary approval if you felt like you wanted to do that. And then you still have, as you know, a lot of input and influence over any design changes through site plan approval. But
so you think that preliminary and final might be on the agenda for this month?
Just preliminary. Final subdivision, because we have to grant the subdivision.
I say preliminary
preliminary if you want to, because as you recall, they got pretty far along in the design. I haven't been told there's any changes. I've asked directly.
Well, I guess I would just say that, you know, we have new board members who haven't seen the project, CJ,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, and maybe you might not be ready to do preliminary if it's the first time they're seeing it. We might want to take some time and refresh everybody, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. And never mind. I was going to say, I don't see the building, but it's on the very last page. I had been focused on the new wall, but I see the building now as well.
Oh, there's a large retaining wall behind the units. Is that the one you're talking about, Emily? It's odd that they're not here. Was there a certain time for them this morning that were
Yes.
early, or what time was their time?
8:40.
And they're still not here. It's 8:44.
So
this
it is
really
odd, but yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say it was really controversial. And so do we have a public hearing again for this project regarding subdivision or just site plan approval?
We already met the public hearing requirements, but we do not have a public hearing for the subdivision. And in fact, I don't believe the planning board has a choice of whether or not to do the subdivision based on the court order. But I mean, if the board, we could discuss, we could certainly, because it's been a long time, we could certainly hold another public hearing for site plan.
Maybe that should
Maybe
be
we can
with the rest of the group.
Yeah.
It's too late for this month with the notification requirements, but we could, let me look at that and ask our attorney if we can do that. We'd have to do it next month. So, yeah.
What happens if an applicant doesn't show up for PRC?
Well, according to our ordinance, they're not allowed to be on the agenda, but I think this project, because it has been so many, because it's a very developed project, and we're only considering the subdivision. I'll just reach out to Jagged. It's Jagged, and find out why he wasn't here. And we could just, maybe because they're not here, that's a good reason to not just do the subdivision and not proceed with site plan approval this month. Do you agree?
That's good. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, so we'll do subdivision. The board will do approval of the minor subdivision. And then we will move on to site plan approval next month.
Okay.
With a public hearing. Okay.
Potential public hearing, or
let me just verify that that is
possible.
Yeah.
I mean, what I was saying is that maybe we should have a conversation with the rest of the board to decide whether we think that's a good idea, or are we deciding now that let's do it if it's legally feasible? I would think former, have a conversation if
yes, I agree with you.
Let's have a conversation with the board to see if we want to do it.
On my end, I will just verify that we can do that. I think it would be fine. But just let me make sure, given the situation. Okay. All right. All right. The next project is Balch Hall, the renovations, and I see Ram Venkat, who's the project manager from Cornell, in the waiting room. So I'm going to let him in. Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay.
hear birds.
I know.
Yeah. I used to work with Ram at home.
Hi, Emily. Good seeing you. It's been a while. Hi, Lisa.
Hi,
Meg.
Ram.
Hi,
Hi,
Ram.
David.
Good morning.
Hi, David.
Good morning.
Hey, Mitch.
Morning, David.
Emily.
So it's been a while probably since you've been to this committee, Ram,
Mhm,
correct?
mhm.
Yeah, so this is like the working committee where we try to, look at your project and the board asks questions and kind of prepares for the planning board meeting. So it's a good time to identify any issues and work out any issues. Rem and I already discussed the schedule. So this month it'll just be a presentation and declaration of lead agency. Next month we can do a public hearing. And if we're ready, seeker, and then the following month would be approval. That's the basic layout. It doesn't have to follow that schedule if we run into problems. So would the
Sounds
board
good.
like a brief presentation of the project? Committee?
Sure.
I don't, I asked earlier whether or not to prepare a presentation and I was
Yeah.
told not to. So
By me,
I don't.
by me.
So I don't have a PowerPoint that
Yeah.
I can go through. I can pull up the PowerPoint I used for the pre-application meeting and kind of review. It's not changed much. I can kind of review it. Does that work?
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Sure. Yeah, this is the first time we're seeing it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have a sense of what it is. I live down the block from it. And in full disclosure, I also worked for Goody Clancy for 5 years before coming to Ithaca. So
Oh, no kidding. So you know
I know
Amanda
Lisa, I know
Sanders.
Lisa, Amanda, I know everybody. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So, great
Um,
firm. But I guess I have to say that I have no financial obligation to the project. Also, as an employee of Cornell, no. Yeah,
So many disclaimers.
project. Yeah, a couple at least.
Here, I can share my screen. Just bear with me. There we go. If okay with you, I'm just going to leave this in this format rather than full screen because the presentation mode is not set up right on my computer. So Balch Hall, you know where it's located. The scope of the project really is to renovate the entire building. The building is almost 100 years old. The building has a beautiful surrounding. It sits, right next to the gorge, and it's landscaped really beautifully around the building. The trees on the front of the building over the years have been replaced, and they currently have 4 mature oaks. The courtyard has a couple of elm trees. The image on the right is the archway that really serves as an entryway from campus onto North Campus residential buildings. So many students just walk right through that archway. This is a simple overview of what the circulation paths look like. You'll see a better version of this in the next round of presentation. This was a very preliminary one that I put together. Very simply, all the green lines represent pedestrian pathways. The blue lines were the fire truck access. We know more than what's shown on this drawing at the moment. There is a fire truck access on the south loading dock as well. Plus there's a bus stop here and there's 2 bus stops on Thurston Avenue as well. The overall scope of the project, the building will continue to be a women's first-year residence hall. I don't know the exact count, but I think the number of beds in the building is around 430, and we're increasing it by maybe another 20 or 30 beds. The intention is to bring everything up to code and up to current standards, all new infrastructure throughout the building, all new furniture, all new fire protection, life safety systems, all the energy improvements associated with, alteration level 3. building insulation, window replacement. In addition to that, one of the primary goals of the project is to make the building accessible, both exterior and interior. So that poses a lot of challenges in a building that's heavily landscaped, and how you bring an accessible walkway into the building, or into the entrances. Plus, you know, how do you add elevators in an existing building with gable roofs without, you know, poking right through the roof? So that's an architectural challenge. So Goody Clancy has done a really good job. We have gone through, I would say, a dozen different options on how we go about this. The scope has been this large and it's kind of shrunk down to this because we face the hard realities of not being able to pay for everything or not having enough funds. So where we are currently, since the pre-application meeting, this scope summary has not changed. The only exception to this is the window replacement. We have now opened the doors to exploring alternate types of windows as well. So we're now looking at both aluminum and steel. Up until this presentation and pre-application, we were really set on wanting to keep everything as steel windows, but hit a pretty harsh reality of how do we get the building systems and all the energy upgrades and the interior finishes and the accessibility improvements all done while replacing everything with steel windows. That doesn't necessarily come with all of the energy performance criteria that you can get with aluminum windows that are thermally broken. Anyway, I'll get back into site. This is the existing landscape. It's not a very good drawing. The next version, you'll see a lot more color in this. But what this shows are trees that are likely to be impacted. And really quickly, the reason for this impact is because there's a electric service that needs to come in right around here. And these are the existing walkways. And the new accessible walkway is coming in right here. So if I jump to the proposed plan, what you'll see here is that the existing walkway shifts further west. This existing stair has to shift further west in order to create a landing that can receive this raised walkway, which is accessible entry into this archway. And you can imagine, in order to do this, all of this area needs to be regraded. And we're adding about 2, if not 3 feet of soil in this area in order to get this walkway to work. The reason we're looking at it as a walkway and not a ramp is because the ramp was hugging this building and there's concern of snow falling off the roof. So we did our best to pull this walkway as far away from the building as we can while making it a raised walkway going up the building. And that results in impact to these trees, which we're now calling for replacement. So this circle here and these 2 trees will be the new location for 4 new trees that we would be putting in replacement of these 4 trees that are likely to come down. This is not an easy decision for us. We've tried quite a bit with an arborist to see how we can salvage these trees or protect these trees while making all of these changes. We're aware of all of the air spading technologies and everything, but the challenge is we don't think it's going to survive. We really don't think that this level of grading will leave these trees unharmed. Dave, do you want to add anything at this stage about landscaping?
And I think just a couple points. First, in talking about more of the accessible walks and all too, we also thought it was very important to make these walkways, i.e. the slope less than 5%, so we would not require handrails along the side of those, which would have a major visual impact on the historic face as well. So that also increases some of the grading, you know, the length of the walkways and the extent of changes that we're making. Also, there, you know, in addition to the electrical utility work, there's a lot of storm drainage work that is being done in order to both capture kind of footer drains of downspouts, as well as the water has been getting behind that low arched wall to further, that defines that terrace there, and starting to pull that apart too. So adding some additional storm drains on that side to solve that problem as well. So really those trees that were there were going to be excavated on kind of both sides, as well as have filled and put on over their area. So we conceded that it's essentially impossible to save those, which is particularly a difficult conversation because they are donor trees that were donated, quite a few years ago, of course, but still they have a sentimental value as well. I guess the only other thing, the lemonade we're trying to make out of this is that those 4 trees at the size they are now pretty much totally obscure that south face or the west face of the facade there, and you can hardly see the archway at all. By spacing them further out, it's really now going to be framing the view into the archway rather than kind of creating that wall in front of it. So it's about the only good thing I could say about having to take those trees out and re-landscape to something that probably fits the style and the approach of the building a little bit better.
Yeah. All right, let me zoom back out here.
Lisa, just a quick question. How much time do we have? Just curious.
We have 10 more minutes until the next,
Lisa, I just realized that Pat Conrad, another project manager, is also probably in the waiting room.
He is. I'll let him in.
Okay.
Give him my
All right.
apologies.
I'll keep moving here. So even though the landscape scope is limited to what's indicated here in green, this area here has a chilled water line coming into the building because the building doesn't have air conditioning at the moment. So this is our service entrance. And then more recently, there is a walkway being considered out here because there is no walkway that leads to the public way for a means of egress that's maintainable. So we're looking into adding a walkway on the north end here. Beyond this, there is a larger impact, which is not really landscape improvements, but it's all the utility related, all stormwater related. Since this drawing was put together, we did a full survey or a pretty significant survey of all of the underground storm piping. And we don't think that all the piping needs to be replaced. This indicates all of the storm piping being replaced, which is going to have a pretty big impact on the amount of soil disturbance, which we're currently estimating at about 1.2 acre disturbance. So TG Miller would be putting a SWIP together for this project, along with storm water treatment that's proposed both on the north side of this building and on the south side of this building. This overall scope of this is still being discussed with the design team because we think we can reuse many of the existing storm pipes, even though they're 100 years old. Many of them are still in good shape, and we don't want to dig it up and replace it if we don't have to. But that decision hasn't been made yet. So this represents a worst case scenario. We don't think it's going to go under 1 acre of disturbance, but that possibility does exist. But at this point, we're planning for the worst case. Moving beyond site, this is so there's only 4 elevators that we're adding to the building, even though this is showing 6. This elevator number 5 is only a 2-story elevator that connects interior floors. And this is a Lula. So it's not something you'd see outside the building. So the 4 elevators we're adding are basically for the 4 units of bulge. And each of those, in order to connect to the topmost level, results in a dormer that looks something like this. Our intention is to, make it as close in appearance as the existing dormers, even though the scale is much larger. And we're still playing with whether or not there's a horizontal break, if there's some louvers that are needing to be built into it. And we're not there yet. When we present at the June 23rd meeting, we're going to have some renderings that show, where the current design stands, but that's still under development. Sorry, one other piece I should just mention here. This is a relatively new scope item. At the northwest corner of this building, there's an existing stair, which I think you can see it if I zoom in. There's some stairs here that kind of turn the corner, and I'll have better images of this. For various reasons, we're needing to increase the grade by about 2 feet in this corner because the building is currently classified as a 6-story building because this is the only corner of the building that's more than 12 feet. And we, if it remains a 6-story building, then our construction classification requires a lot of interior fire upgrades that are really hard to do. So instead of doing that, we're raising the grade on this side to classify the building as a 5-story building, which really just this one corner is why we're in the 6-story building. And by raising the grade here by a couple feet, we think that we can prevent a lot of modifications on the inside of the building.
So you'll have to rebuild the stair.
Yeah, we have to rebuild the stair. It changes the look of this a little bit, but you'll see all of this on the 23rd. This is not in the package that was submitted, but you'll see more prior to the meeting. And I'll see if I can send you something ahead of time.
So just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just curious if the committee has any questions.
Sure.
Emily, do you have anything? I'm going to have a couple.
Go ahead, Mitch. You can go first.
Well, we don't need to get too much into the details here, but it seems like a lot of stuff is in progress. I am curious about that 2-foot addition and whether there's some kind of variance. I mean, it seems like a lot of effort to go through to just avoid a certain designation that could just be avoided through some kind of special permitting. I mean, I'm looking at the elevation right now, 5-6 stories. I mean, it just seems like it's the cart driving the horse in some ways, and I understand fire code, but I think we should talk about that, see what the other board members feel. That's one thing. And then curious about the donors of the trees, whether they're still alive, that they've been contacted. I think the board will be interested in the discussion of aluminum versus steel. I think that's an important decision, and I saw the different window options. They're pretty different. So we're going to need to talk more about that.
Okay. Can I comment on the two, on the variance comment you made?
We're kind of running out of time, but
Okay.
let's see if Emily has any questions, because you can
Sure.
talk about that. Yeah.
I was going to bring up the windows as well. And then my only other comment more than question is I wonder if moving the trees is an opportunity to activate that front lawn. And I don't know, it seems outside of the scope, but perhaps it's an opportunity because it seems underused, more of like a pass through. And then just maybe for our bigger meeting, the next time we see you, I wondered about how your work is impacted by the larger NCRE additional foot traffic, bike traffic, car traffic that's going to be happening on our campus.
Okay. Those are all good comments, and we'll prepare a response for that by the next meeting. Just really quickly, Rob Feldewald and Mike Nikodovich have been involved in the project, and we've talked with them quite a bit about the 5-6 story discussion. And it would be worth for you all to check in with them on whether or not a variance route is possible. We would love to explore that. We don't want to raise the grade. We did ask them that question, but didn't get the sense that that was an option.
I can follow up with them and provide the board with that, whatever information.
Yeah. Excellent.
Who are those folks?
They are in the building. Mike was the previous director of code enforcement, and Rob is now the acting director of code enforcement. So he reviews all the plans and interprets the code.
One more quick question regarding the windows. I think I understand, the energy impacts of aluminum versus steel, but it might help the conversation to drive it towards an energy conversation rather than an aesthetic conversation. If you could give us some performance data for the meeting.
Okay.
Are you adding central air to the building?
We are. Yeah, the building is.
So we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, because of the chilled. I see the chill. You mentioned the chilled. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a very comfortable building in the warmer months. Yeah, there's a portion of the building that we're not touching, which is the TATCON Center. Very minimal modifications there. That's not a residential space, it's an office space, but all of the residential areas, we are providing all new systems.
And just quickly, you said you're adding 20 to 30 new beds. How are you doing that fundamentally?
There's a administrative office wing, which is where the main offices are for Student Campus Life in the first floor of South Balch, and they're vacating that area. So that area is being converted to support spaces for the residence hall, freeing up some other areas for bedrooms.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So as I said, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like a really thoughtful project, and that you're touching it lightly, but it will have a big impact. So I'm excited about it.
That's great.
So at the planning board meeting in June, on June 23rd, we'll have a project presentation, and the board will do declaration of lead agency. It's a very long meeting. I just drafted the agenda yesterday. So plan for a very brief presentation and declaration of lead agency, and then we'll move on. You'll get more time in the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, all right. Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you. Bye-bye.
Nice to see you.
all right. So I see, whoops. Jason Demarest and Jerry Dietz here for the next project, 120 to 140 Brinley Street and 902 Tabor. So I'm going to let them in. All right, so I see, oops. Can you turn off your live stream? I see,
Oops.
can you, yeah. Good morning.
Morning.
Is there anybody else that's supposed to be here, or is it just the two of you? Not that that's
Just the
not
two of us. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Two of us chickens, you know, as my mother-in-law used to say.
All right. I'm going to share. Okay. I'm assuming.
You have about 15 minutes total.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Jumping right in. So yesterday and today.
Look at that, at least we don't move fast enough.
You already lost 2 minutes.
Yeah.
12 minutes now.
Yeah. So yesterday I received the draft stormwater report. Some good news in it. We're looking at, so here's the proposed plan. You saw on the submission, the rain garden idea that deals with this drainage area, the red boundary, and the addition to the PSD building. And then as anticipated, some form of stormwater practice. In this case, it's a bioretention filter to serve this part of the site, and we don't need the below grade storm chamber. So this is ready to go to the city engineering office. I assume that would be best case. So we can sort out next steps with that, so they can have some comments by the planning board meeting. And then, so next I'll just jump into the package, and I'll just try to move quickly. Couple clarifications, just based a little bit on your email, Lisa, just so the board is aware. I call this the construction plan, but we also included erosion control measures on this. The construction entrance tracking pad is here. Really, just like Art House, it's such a flat site that there's not a lot of erosion concern and sediment control concerns. So we're looking at using these filter socks on the downstream drainage areas. So
is that labeled on that drawing that you're using a perimeter?
Yeah, so right here it's
okay. I see that.
Yeah, there it is. And it's labeled, and then you can see the symbol. And then, and this also shows the construction fence. I changed the line style to be a little bit more consistent. So, and then you can see it in the legend up here, the fence and the silt fence. So, and then the detail sheet cover a little bit more about inlet protection and things of that nature. Next demo plan, hopefully you've had a chance to look at it now. I went through all of these at the last PRC before we delayed a month. So really not much has changed. So anyway, just showing what's demoed. But like I said, the below grade storm chamber system does not look like it's needed here. So we won't have to disturb this parking lot. We'll really build that new stormwater practice in the lawn area back here. Proposed plan, this really hasn't changed in a while now, except for, like I say, that disturbance that turns out we don't need. All pretty straightforward and similar to the last time. Grading drainage plan. This is what my civil engineer used. They're really basing everything on what I'm proposing for drainage. So I'll be working with them just to tighten it up as we finalize the practice. And you can see if I jump back here, it's very shallow depression. It actually turns out we came across drawings from the 902 Tabor project when they put the connecting road in and did some of the site improvements. These areas are actually defined as I think it was some sort of stormwater practice. The low spot here and the low spot here. I don't know if they did a bioretention, which is really digging out and bringing in a drainage medium. So I think I need to check in with the city records to see if there's actually something there. But I think based on what we're doing, we have to make it larger. So anyway, drainage, I don't think there's really much more to tell you. Oh, I should note that we figured we might as well connect this footpath. That was not something on the earlier site plans. So we're just connecting up. So there's actually a loop around the property. You'd have to walk through the parking and cycle around. So that's drainage. Landscape plan you've seen before, a few little changes. I had a tree in here, but I decided just to keep that more of a screening landscape bed. That's what the purple is here. I changed the color tone on this a little to half tone it just to indicate that was the city's project. And then I ended up adding a tree here because we're doing some accent lighting on these more ornamental trees along the front. And then the street trees are the sycamores, which are consistent with the Brindley Street Bridge project. This plan also shows site lighting. These are the pole lights, little bollard lights. There's goosenecks on the balconies. The PD is the pendants hanging under the canopy on the front. And these are a little bit more utility lights in nature. And the site detail sheet show all that. This is like a timber pole and light. We're going to replace that with a more decorative fixture. And then now, I think for the first time, you're seeing just kind of a close-up view with a more detailed planting scheme and individualized plantings. The schedule is back on this sheet, so you can bring the codes over and see what we're doing there. I did get rid of the hydrangea, and we brought in this lilac to replace that. And based on final growth, final size, you know, these are more of a hedgerow, and then the lilacs are brought into, I think that was the BXG. Hold on. SV, sorry.
Jason, I just want to mention again that I'm pretty sure you have deer roaming around that property. So you want to review your plant list to make sure it's deer resistant, and
Right. We
lilac is not.
What's that?
Lilac is not.
Well, it's interesting because, and maybe it's just the information I'm getting, that it did say it was deer resistant, but we'll continue.
I would talk to a local landscape professional who knows about what deer eat in this area.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get into everything.
Which is pretty much it.
Right, but there are some things they don't eat, and you need to deal with that. So you don't want to be disappointed. I've lived through that. So, anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, hopefully
you're going to put up fake trees.
Right.
Going to get those, like the Christmas trees. We'll put those in.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Okay. So anyway, that you can look at these in more detail. And then the site utility plan, we have reached out to NYSEG. We don't have a definitive answer yet. Also talking with Robert Sparks, who's assisting with that process, who also has an interest in the property. We might bring new power up Cherry Street and then refeed back. I'd love to get rid of some poles. In particular, this utility pole. It just seems unnecessary because there's kind of a triangulation here. The existing pole is right in the new building footprint, but it's very strange. The power comes across the inlet, runs down the inlet, hits this pole, and then serves all of these buildings. There's a communications pole line over here, so that would be a second option for NYSEG. And then worst case, they would continue here, maybe set a pole somewhere along this new proposed line, and then maybe we jockey that pole. But anyway, there's power out there. We just need to figure out what NYSEG really wants to do. And then on this go around, they've really outlined, this appears to be communications only. It's very weird. Power running back this way, only communications coming down. Anyway, you can take a look at that. We're going to be trenching in here to get to the sewer, trenching into the road to get gas, water. And what we'd like to do is bring power down the pole underground, probably put a transformer in this area and then feed into the building. So, and then the stormwater was depicted here, but now that I've got that moving along, I might pull that or just lightly indicate it.
So Jason, let's open it up for planning board comments and questions.
Yep.
Yeah. So the action for this month is potential declaration of environmental significance.
So I would just like to say thank you for all of the information on the energy systems. Maybe you had mentioned it before, but this is a really, seems like an aggressive, thermal package in the ground and air source heat pumps. So I think that all looks really great. And thank you for going so far above code with the insulation and the ERV. It seems to me like we've talked about everything else, but that's in the environmental assessment form, except the transportation impact. I'm not sure if for the meeting we need to have, for the form, we need to have more, but Lisa, do you think there's going to be a bigger discussion on that?
Yeah, I need to fill that. That's for me to fill in. And the approach I thought I would take with it as a draft for the planning board would be to really talk about how this is integrated into this whole new trail network and vehicular network actually, but everything, you know, it's like there's the new bridge, there's the Black Diamond Trail Bridge that's going in next year. There's additional pedestrian and bike. I think that as like the approach that I was going to take was how well integrated it is into this new and expanding and improved system. I don't see any impacts, vehicular negative impacts, particularly. I don't know if you do.
No, it seems small. I just wondered if we would discuss it, but that sounds good.
Yeah.
In the larger context.
Do we still have the panels along Brindley that the city is proposing, or have those gone away?
Is that for me to follow? Yeah. Is that for me? Yeah. I'll ask. I'll follow up with that.
And then my other comment was I still, you know, this is getting to be fully cooked, I understand, but I really think if there's any place to do pervious parking, grass paver parking, any other kind of material that can be, you know, take on groundwater filtered. You've got rain gardens, beautiful, but, you know, there's an industrial aesthetic here, Cherry Street, this whole district. I think if there's a place to do it, it would be here. And I know that has lots of implications for you because it is getting pretty well conceived at this point, but I just want to keep pushing for that.
Okay.
But the project still looks great, and I think it brings a lot of value to this part of town, and it really is going to be a great point after the new pedestrian way and the new road bridge. So I think you guys have done a wonderful job, and thanks for doing this project.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
So Lisa, in light of the schedule for the planning board meeting, I know there's a lot on it. How much should I plan to go through presentation wise?
So the new drawings you showed today, did you submit those?
Those I just got, so I'll submit those.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I would just stick to updates to anything, very brief. And the board will need time to review the part 3. Will be their main jobs.
Okay. It's a 24-page report. Do you want, looks like it's got a few.
The stormwater report?
Few full-size drawings, although some of these I can shrink down. Actually, no, that's 8.5 by 11. A repeat, I already submitted the survey. Well, anyway, I'll submit the full 14 in full size, 2 full size, right? So.
No, yeah, we don't need this is of the stormwater report?
The stormwater.
Why don't we talk about this after, usually just one set, and then we could do an executive summary for the board. Just submit digitally to me the stormwater report.
Sure. Okay, great. Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much.
Yep. Thank
you. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
All right. All right, so the next project is 215 East State Street. I see some of the project team in the waiting room, so I'm going to let them in. Brian.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi. Who else do you have? in there. Is Andy, I have Jared Hutter.
Yep, Jared Hutter.
Okay, and then is Jeff with his phone? I have somebody who just says iPhone. I don't know who that is.
I'm
What?
not,
Okay.
not sure about that, but John Abash with BSB Design.
And then is
I know that James and Jeff Rimlin were meeting together down there somewhere, but they may be late in calling on if you don't see them.
Yep. So good morning. I have two people joining by phone. Are you part of the project team? Could you identify yourselves or?
Jared Hutter's here. I'm
Okay, I
partnered
see
with
Jared.
Jeff.
Yep.
Yep.
I see somebody, two people joining by phone. All right, well, if it becomes a problem. Okay. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so Brian Bouchard, I'm with CHA. I'm filling in for James because he is currently on the road and was going to try and call in, but civil engineer, project engineer working on Jeff Rimlin's project at 215 East State Street. John Abash is also on, and Jared Hutter, as part of the ownership, is also on. So I guess I'll just go through some of the updates that we've made since the last meeting, if that's a good start. Can I have the ability to share my screen? So the major improvements that we made to the plan set here since the last meeting were based on some of the comments that we received from city staff with respect to the seeker review and some of the coordination items between our project individually, but also between our project and the neighboring Asteri project. We talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, but we have developed a maintenance and protection of traffic plan that goes through basically three different aspects of both vehicular and pedestrian maintenance and protection during the construction. The first is a multi-lane shift to preserve 2 lanes of traffic within Green Street and still provide a workable space out in front of our project, but also contemplating the fact that the adjacent project will be undergoing construction at the same time. So there are some improvements that we'll make to this plan prior to the planning board meeting based on comments that we've already received from some of the city staff. But basically we would shift the lanes out in front of the Asteri project to the southbound curb line to maintain 2 lanes of traffic throughout the duration of construction, which is approximately 2 years. We've left in here the ability to maintain breaks within the delineation barrier for access to the City Hall parking lot when it can still be provided. We've also left access for the pedestrian crosswalk while it can still be provided as well. Down in front of the garage where the garage entrance is, that can also remain open until a point in time when the Asteri project comes in to start demolishing that, and they can kind of piggyback on this traffic plan to close that entrance off for the purpose of their construction start. We have all the advanced warning signs and things that we're coordinating with the DOT, but the one aspect of this plan that we discussed with Eric was to try and preserve as much of the existing on-street parking up to the City Hall as we can, both the sidewalk and the on-street parking. So we have the ability to move this lane shift down a little bit so that it starts to occur sort of at that driveway entrance and would taper kind of into the Asteri project area. But they have said that their workspace is fairly long anyway, so that probably wouldn't impact them, and it still preserves the ability for people to do business at City Hall and maybe have still a couple on-street parking spaces without too much encumbrance of the sidewalk as well. We still have the bus lanes penciled in here so that buses can still pull off. But for the duration of the project, this gives us the ability to stage construction vehicles and trailers within the frontage of our site without impacting the 2 lanes of traffic. The traffic would merge back together into its existing pattern down under the bridge to the east. Based off of that plan, we do anticipate the need for having potentially a single lane closure within this new traffic pattern. This would be more of a short-term event, whether it's for a couple days or for a week or 2 throughout the duration of construction, but trying to preserve the ability to narrow this down to 1 lane if there is some sort of larger delivery, perhaps when the crane's getting brought to the site and getting set up, things that may need a little bit more space within the traveled roadway. So what we've done is built off of that existing long-term lane shift and provided the lane closure with a merge just in front of the Asturi project to create more of a temporary workspace that would be on a short-term basis. The third plan that we put together was the pedestrian detour, which as the Asturi project talks through theirs is a little bit more complicated in trying to preserve some of the alleyway connection to the commons. So they have more of a multi-stage plan where they'd close 1/2 and build the garage and then try and open this up. And so they kind of bounce back and forth. But with respect to the frontage along our site, there is going to be no ability for pedestrians to use the northerly sidewalk. And the only available option is to provide the sidewalk closed and notifications down at South Cayuga Street to direct them to the south, and that they can use the south sidewalk to travel all the way up to Aurora where there's the existing sidewalks. We also talked a little bit about the ability to provide enough signage for the pedestrian public to not have to barricade these stairs off so that they can still be available. For instance, if people are doing like a lunch break walk around the site here or wherever it might be, that there's enough traffic signage to say that pedestrians can't go westbound on Green Street, but that we can still maintain those stairs should people need to, take a walk or access those stairs as they might need to.
Hey, Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just being mindful of our time here. And this is great information and the planning board will get this, but I just wanted to say that we are scheduled for design review at the planning board meeting. And if you have any updates about that, you should get to them so the board can also give comments because we only have a few minutes left.
Okay, yeah,
that's fine.
Just being mindful of everybody's time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess for design on the site plans, we're really, it's a small site. So this was the major change that was asked of us for the seeker coordination. And then as far as design review goes, John Abest, project architect, has some updates for the building and some of those components that he can go through now too. So okay. I'll stop sharing and then give him the ability to share his screen. Hopefully.
Okay. Does the committee have any comments on what you just saw? I mean, this is an ongoing conversation that we're working out the access during construction.
Absolutely. The only one thing that I want to flag is your short-term 1-lane merge option. I want to make sure that is truly short-term, that, you get into these things and suddenly, it's a crane delivery, but then it's like, 6 months and it's a 1-lane deal on Green Street. I don't think that would be good for kind of the public to have to deal with that. So I don't know what mechanisms are in place to monitor that or ensure that, but I just wanted to flag that one particular drawing where it shows just a single lane for buses, trucks, cars, everybody while construction's happening.
Yeah, I'll just answer that very quickly in 30 seconds or less. I think the intent was that there would be a need to have that happen so that the DOT asked for that to be included in the plan. I don't have a specific date or time when that would happen. It would just need to happen, occasionally during construction. But second to that is in our call previously, Eric and some of the city folks and Tim seem to think that because of the volume of traffic and the speed of traffic, that single lane probably isn't too much of an issue, but we can definitely track that as we go along to make sure that it's used appropriately and not excessively used, and trying to maintain 2 lanes as much as we can. I'll take that note.
I also just wanted to say, I think it's a great idea to keep those stairs open, so that there's a mid-block on the north sidewalk, mid-block access. And I'm thinking of it more for safety under that bridge, so that, you know, there's a second option for people to get out. So I think we can think through that a little bit more at the meeting as well.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, I will run through the updated design fairly quickly, being mindful of time. As you can see, there's nothing that has been updated on the East Green Street elevation yet. Obviously, at the next meeting, what we're going to be refining is the landscape along East Green Street, sidewalks, really refining that so you understand exactly what the pedestrian experience is going to be like. Currently, it's still just fairly schematic. So at the June 23rd meeting, I'm going to make sure that we have the reality of what's there with, you know, wide sidewalks, pedestrian friendly, bike spaces, and all that ties into, you know, car entry and car exit, so that we really get the feel for what it's going to look like. As far as the plans, the layouts have not changed. What I'd like to bring your attention to today is the main entry on the Commons, where there's going to be a stair to the second floor. You know, existing retail is to remain. We're not touching it. But what we are doing is starting to break up that facade along the Commons. So I'd like to show you kind of a rendering of what we're starting to look at. Is breaking it up and pulling it back. And currently, you know, you have this flat brick facade, and we're separating in the center to kind of create 2 separate elements and create a better sense of entry point there, while we start bringing the color palette of the high rise down to the Commons level. So I'm fairly excited about just the simplicity of it, but that it does create a good feel for this entrance that blends in. And we will be looking at, you know, how to light it properly, not adding too much light, but enough. So this is where we're at right now. And we will be refining it a little bit further for the June 23rd meeting. As far as materials go, we sent physical samples, but it's not on a board, so we're sending it back. We'll put it on a board and lay it out a little better for you, so that when you're all in the office, you can look at the samples all together. Emily, last meeting you did bring up a question about, you know, is it EFIS? And we're looking at a bunch of different options right now. Now, the Corten, you know, orange color veneer, that's a panel. So that's going to be basically a metal panel with extruded trim. It has a Corten steel look, but it's not Corten steel. It's more of a Nichiha panel, but it's called Randobond. It's just a different brand. So that's going to be this mass. The white area and the dark area, we're looking at Stowe veneer, which is an EFIS. And the reason why is that, well, first of all, EFIS, although people get concerned about it, I mean, back in the 80s, EFIS was not installed correctly. And over the past 35 years, there's just been a lot of technological advances with it. And what I'm trying to do here is not create a building that has just a bunch of panels. Once you introduce Nichiha everywhere, it's got to be either extruded trim or battens to cover up the joints. So every panel is a 4x10. So it starts to create just these squares everywhere. What EFIS allows to do when you insert it in the right locations is that you can create a monolithic facade a little bit more, and you can be a little more creative with the joint pattern. So I wanted to share with you actually one of the projects that we have been working on with ownership that's currently built. I just wanted to zoom into some of the patterns we've been able to do with diagonal joints and scoring, and you start to create, you know, a different color palette. You can create a lot of complexities and some more fun patterns with this veneer. I kind of equate it to leather versus suede a little bit. They both have their place. EFIS has more of a kind of a flatter color, flatter texture.
Hey, John, it's Jared.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. You know, from the rendering you just showed, that,
Yeah.
you know, for everyone's reference, we'd be happy to share some, you know, actual pictures. What you just showed, John, was obviously the original rendering, and the building is now up and completed, or is in the process of being completed. And it looks way better. The rendering looks good. In person,
Yeah.
it looks way better. So
Yeah.
if you guys want, we'd be happy to share the rendering and what the actuality was, so you can get a sense of that.
But I want to mention that because Emily had brought it up last week and I didn't want to skirt around it. I just want to, absolutely talk about it. And if there's any, design criterias where you don't allow EFS at all, we're trying to obviously keep it above level 4, which is, 45, 50 feet above pedestrian level. So we would never bring it down to grade. That's not the intent. We have masonry brick veneer down here. So on our last sheet, we have digital images of kind of the tones we're looking for our masonry. I really like this chocolate wire cut brick that we've used before. So we're trying to maintain those earth tones. And that's really where we're at right now. For June 23rd, I really want to refine this commons elevation a bit more with any insight that you have on just how it's broken up right now. Again, like I said at the beginning, I want to create that, a small change, keeping it humble, letting it blend into the commons and not stand out too much, but just enough to make a statement. So that's currently where we're at. Other than that, nothing really has changed since last time.
I just wanted to say a few things in preparation, John. Thank you. 2 things that the board will need to see, and one comment is, they really need to see a detail of the Green Street entry area because of the street activation, and that's something you really need to address. And we do have guidelines in there in our downtown design guidelines, so that will be your submission should be based on those, and the application walks you through the different guidelines there on the website. But
Wonderful.
the street activation is really important on Green Street, so we really need to see a detail of how you're addressing that all along the street level facade, and that's all I'm going to say. And
thank you. Absolutely. We will provide that and provide a good rendering of that as well.
Yeah, that was my comment as well. All right, go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to follow up on the EFS. I think it's a great conversation to continue at the big meeting, and the way you're thinking about it sounds like the right way. I think keeping it above the street, 40 feet, is a great idea. And also, if you can, I know we're going to get samples, if you can show us in a packet some jam details of how the EFS and the windows interface and some of those joint details, because what we want to avoid is just a flat monolithic thing. And if we see some articulation at those points, I think it'll be helpful as well.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
And as far as for me, I have the same thought as Lisa. I really need a lot more information about the Green Street entry and facade. I'm not too keen on what's happening on the first 2 or 3 levels right now. It looks pretty cold, uninviting, a lot of opaqueness. The ribbon windows don't really work for me. They look a little bit dated. Your commons entry is much more interesting and warm and inviting. This side, I'm not getting a feeling for that at all. There seems to be a bus stop. I'm not sure what that little pavilion is, but regardless, and also the first 2 levels of those windows that are inside the extrusion, something is not really working here in terms of a street-facing building that I think Lisa was referring to. So I would appreciate a lot more information about this.
Okay.
To be clear, those are parking. You're talking about the parking deck?
Parking levels?
Those are parking. That's parking.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's then even more so. I think that needs a different, more interesting treatment or a better treatment.
Okay.
Shows now.
Okay. Yeah, we will take a look at it and start to refine that more, for sure.
I will say I agree with Mitch, but I think something that's interesting about what's happening on this side is the way you're breaking up the material so much, and it's starting to look like much smaller units, much smaller pieces of the facade, which is good. So don't get rid of that.
Okay. Well, you can see some of these horizontal bands right here that are lighter in the masonry. That's actually, it's actually pretty cool. We have this light that we use that basically fits within the width of a brick. So it's like, it almost blends into the coursing of brick and it creates these LED lighting throughout. So it starts to light up the brick within the coursing. So we're looking at options to do that, to light up that facade in a more creative way than just sticking a canopy or sticking a wall light on the elevation.
What's the use? What's the program behind that brick wall? On
That's parking. So that would be on level 1. Let me drive in. So this is the entrance. So you have parking through here, and that will be for public access as well, to access the commons through the parking. And this is the residential lobby right here in the center. So that glazing that you're seeing at the center, you're seeing, sorry, I keep having to zoom in and out. This is that residential lobby right here. Now this, you're seeing this, you mentioned kind of a bus stop area. I think this canopy might be a little too deep and could be a little more delicate. Maybe it looks a little too heavy. So we can look at that to kind of brighten it up. I think that's what you may have been referring to when you mentioned the bus stop. So
John, can you go back to that floor plan that you just showed with the parking? Because previously we had talked about having only, because of the street activation, not having only one entrance and exit. And I see you've reverted back to having a loop. That was a conversation we had quite a while ago, to block off one side. So at least you're not having 2 curb cuts there. I see that's.
Yeah, I think we had brought this up in the past few meetings. Brian, have you, do you have any information on that? I think this was a discussion that we've had and we reverted back to this. Since it's a one-way, it sort of made sense from in our mind and our design mind to just create the one-way entrance and one-way exit, since it's a left in and then a left out.
Correct.
Oh, hold on.
Yes.
This is Jared. I want to just chime in on that one point. Obviously, this was talked about, and I think we can continue to have dialogue on this. But we would ask that you guys seriously consider the plan that we have like this, going one way in, one way out. From a traffic flow perspective, obviously Green Street's not, the most main road there. There's not a ton of area. This is a much more efficient plan in terms of getting cars in and out, rather than potentially having a backup onto Green Street. So Brian, I'll let you go, but I thought it was important to know.
No, and that's correct as far as, the street is a one-way street. So this allows people to come in on the leading edge and then leave on the waning edge. The driveway garage entrances would be narrower than a wider opening for a single entrance. This is also 35 spaces, so it's not a incredibly heavy traffic driveway in and out like you would see on the adjacent driveway. So giving 2 driveways kind of breaks it up, but also eliminates sort of what is a very congested dead end for 35 vehicles if you were to close one of them off.
Can you go back to the elevation? I think we need to wrap up, Lisa. If I'm not mistaken.
It makes it a safer
I
condition
think
as
this
well,
is
without
a
having a dead
really
end.
important conversation to have. So is that so this just shows the one in, is that correct?
It shows one in, and this is the one out right here.
That's a vehicular exit there.
Correct.
Oh, but there's no curb cut. Oh, okay. This definitely needs some clarification. And some,
Correct. Yeah, and that's
the board.
absolutely. I agree.
So
right.
as they said, like the whole facade needs to be consistent with the floor plans, and we need more detail for the June 23rd.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. All right, we do have to wrap it up. Thank you very
Understood.
much.
You all.
Thank you so much.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we know who was on the phone there?
I am not sure we ever figured that out.
It must have been. Jeff.
Maybe it was Jeff or, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm letting in the team for
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Do we have everyone from the Asteri team here? Is Mark with, Mark's here, great. Bruce?
Have
Bruce is-
everybody's here that was in the waiting room.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna share my screen and just jump into what we have for you this morning.
Kate, I just want to say we're running a little bit behind, and just to be respectful of the board's time, you know, I'm just stating that, yeah.
Gotcha. So on the screen right now, if you can all see my screen, is a quick bulleted list of, this is a complex project and there are a lot of pieces that we're working with staff really closely on. But today we wanted to follow up on some items that we began talking about during the design review conversation last month. This is a copy of the presentation that you all saw, copies of the images of materials that should be in City Hall. We provided this new breakdown of the facade material percentages, and we gave also these sketches for your review last month. So we have Mark Tuttle here, who's the lead project architect, who can speak to these right now if there are questions about these materials. Or we can continue to go through a couple more design things and wrap the design conversation up before we move more thoroughly into the seeker conversation. So Mark can also address potential changes that we are currently looking at for the building on the north side of the building facing Herald Square that relate to the balconies and potential changes there. We also wanted to share some design progress on the ground floor plaza between the Asteri building and Cinemapolis and the garage. We did some design analysis on the Whittam end, and for the DD set that we published last week with the team, we have an updated plan for this plaza that really allows this side of the southern side of the plaza to be more open and introduces a lot more plantings into the plaza. And again, we can come back to these. We also wanted to show the profile of how the tension wires are being designed right now for the vines on the garage. So that that'll give some volume, some in and out for the vine plantings as they come up the garage that we feel lends some interest. We also, this is going to be quick, but also wanted to share some really early lighting conversations that are going on right now. These are design precedents, and we're thinking about our local landscape. These were both taken in Ithaca, but also about starry skies and ways that these can be brought into the urban landscape, and focusing first on the plaza. So the current conversation is about these small floodlights that provide light, as well as uplighting from the plaza itself that have color, a starry small lighting canopy overhead when you're in front of Cinemapolis, and accent lighting in the plantings. So this is pretty loose right now. And clearly you can see that there are literal sketches of vines, but we wanted to show those because we thought they were helpful. So we're thinking about having lighting in, little downlights in the vines themselves, and having uplighting, that colored uplighting to illuminate the overhead in front of the conference center. Here's a night view. So again, these are really early sketches. They're like blue beam sketches, but wanted to share these. Another view from, from looking toward the alley, small downlighting, and then you can see this starry overhead in front of Cinemapolis. So that's a view of that. A view from behind. closer to Home Dairy Alley is right now. So we have uplighting on the plantings, lighting in the planters, the night view, of course. Within the plaza, there will be lighting on the curved benches, uplighting that's colored again, shining up, and then the overhead of stars. And then ooh, that's big. And then just a view of where the design is headed for this interior space, looking back again toward this area. So this is a noon, and that's more 7 a.m. light, and the evening light again with sketches. So that's a very quick overview of some design changes that are ongoing. And we have the team here with us to discuss those. We can do that right now, or we can continue to present updates as they relate to the seeker process. What's your preference?
Well, I feel like one of the important things to deal with, since you have mentioned it, was the rear alley and the closeness of the buildings.
Sure.
But does the committee agree with that?
Yes. Mark, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I can. We have looked at what we could do to tighten things up on our side in order to create a little more space in the upper portions of the alley. We're not currently looking at changing the gap between the Herald Square and Asteri on the lower levels. But once we get to the residential level 4, and definitely from 5 up, we're looking at coming back 4.5 feet, and then coming up so that the alley becomes 4.5 feet wider. We're already offset, I think, 1.5 feet or 2. Andy can clarify that, but we're doing that by squaring the building off. And so the red that you see is space that we're taking away, and then the blue is space that we would have to add back in order to make those units be functional.
I can pull up a copy of the presentation from last month so that we see where we're talking about. And some of the 3D views. Sorry. Okay, here we are. So we are talking about this area of the building. So just zooming in here. So you can see that, Andy, can you remind us the distance between the facade of Herald Square and the Asteri building as proposed currently without these changes?
Yep, currently it's about 14 feet, 14.5 feet.
Okay. And the difference that these changes could make for the upper levels, just trying to be clear on the
4.5 feet.
Right.
So that would be about 18 or 19 feet between Herald Square and our building on the upper levels.
And it's Bruce here, to be clear. We're looking at this as a result of the public comments we received in the public hearing last month, and just trying to do what we can to help mitigate the situation here. And as a result of doing that, as Mark pointed out, we're eliminating those balconies on the corner, which eliminates some of the articulation on that facade, which may not be important since it's the rear facade. But we are trying to pull back from that 5th level up. And then also, Mark, if I'm not mistaken, we square up the corner in the top 3 levels as well, right? We just take it straight up.
That's right.
So I think there's a little bit of a trade-off in giving a little bit more breathing room between the 2 buildings, and a little bit of design articulation on that north side, but wanted to get some feedback from the board as it relates to that.
Sure, I can start with that. I think it's a great idea to increase to 18, 19 feet. So I appreciate you working on that. both for pedestrians below getting light into that space and between the buildings. But I'm bummed out that the solution is to eliminate balconies. It's affordable units and we're eliminating an amenity. And is it possible to get those on the west and the east facades, to retain some outdoor space for those units? You have to make trade-offs, but I'm just curious if it's possible.
We'll have to look at that structurally. One issue that balconies create a little bit of a challenge for us, maybe not so much your problem, but ours, affordable housing, and we're providing an amenity for a fraction of the units and not the others. So it actually creates a little bit more of a sort of equity challenge. And the reason that we added the balconies to begin with was to articulate and cut the building back and create some three-dimensional interest and also increase the views through there. So adding the balcony.
Also, I think the square footage of that's another one. When you look at the units, we've pared that north wall back down now. If we start adding balconies to those units, even on the other sides, then it just reduces the square footage of livable space in those units. We're trying not to reduce our unit count or unit mixes.
We could look at doing something with a slight offset or something in the facade treatment first and see if that would be acceptable alternative.
It's an interesting conversation. Maybe we can just have it again at the bigger meeting to see how the other board members feel. Because I see now that you've explained it, there's pluses and minuses for both.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So that was really again, Bruce here. That was a result of conversations, and we've had some conversations directly with Herald Square folks after the public hearing last week. So we are in those discussions right now.
And so this was an overview of just following up on that design review conversation, because we had a lot to cover and it was a long night. Any other questions about the materials we've shown this morning for design? Otherwise, we have a number of seeker updates.
I have one comment. It's Bruce here, and then I did on the YouTube channel listen into the previous project and heard the conversation about the E word. And I think it's important to realize, and I think Brian didn't quite, I don't know what their particular brand and model they're looking for is, but one of the things we've looked at is that synthetic stucco system as it's known in the industry now. I mean, there are two major differences. There's two major systems in the world right now. There's the EIFS, which is more of a low-rise residential product. Then there is a synthetic stucco, which is a cementitious stucco system with a synthetic finish coat on it, and that's really more meant for projects of this kind of scale and durability. And we are doing the same thing, using it on the upper levels, and it's called the Stowe Power Wall system. So if you start looking up these systems on the web, the Stowe products have both an EIFS system, and then they've got a synthetic stucco system, and they are completely different. It's really the difference between residential and commercial products. So I think I would encourage everybody to take a look at that difference and just make sure you're understanding what you're getting here.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Any other board members have? We're really running up against time here. So, and Mitch, do you have any comments?
273 affordable units, right? Is that still the number? What's the number?
218.
218, yeah.
218, okay. Still, a great project for downtown, great project for Ithaca. Affordability is so critical. So I really appreciate you all pushing this project. I appreciate the changes to the public space. I think that's moving in a good direction. Some things I like, some things maybe not so much, but we could talk about that at the board, and also with the garage treatment along Green Street. But again, thank you for the project.
Okay. So Kate, you were going to go through some secret things, but maybe we just wait for a full board discussion, considering that we're running behind, unless you feel like there's one thing that is really important that you want to bring up. How does the board feel? Yeah.
Well, just generally, as we look toward our submission next week, we wanted to confirm what you all are expecting the conversation for the 23rd to be like, because our current understanding is that later this month, there will be a continuation of the public hearing, as well as a review of the updated draft part 3 of the seeker form. So those two things are currently on the agenda. So the question is whether you want us to give you a full memo outline of all of the moving pieces for construction, logistics, all of that, which are, as Bruce and others have mentioned, and you heard during the 215 project, a lot of that is in flux right now, and we're working with city staff through a lot of those. Or we can give you copies of all of this in process design materials. So we could do both. We could focus on seeker. What's your preference?
It's a lot to cover. I think we need to hear about most of that if we can. I mean, this is an important project. It's a big project. We need to cover it. So we shouldn't cut short things. Important conversations would be my opinion.
I have a suggestion. It's Bruce here, and this is new to me. This whole, I mean, not the site plan review process is not new, but the level of detail in which we're going through it is relatively new. I would propose, Kate, that maybe we do prepare a package that we can submit on Monday for the board meeting that essentially is a complete overall summary of the project, both the seeker elements as well as the design elements, and overall floor plans, elevations, details, everything we've done so far, so that there is a one concise, complete package that the board has, and then we can really discuss what the specific issues might be. But it seems like every month we sort of give bits and pieces and updates, but I almost think we want for next month to have a full, complete sort of overview of the project, including all the elements we've nailed down and a couple of the ones that we're still in flux on. Does that make sense?
I think that's a good idea. I think that because there's so many details, I think it would be helpful to the board, and we sometimes do this with big projects, to pick, I think we need to separate the seeker elements from the other elements that we can continue to work on during site plan review. From my perspective, I see like any major changes to the building massing as being a seeker issue. So the issue of if you're going to pull the building back or not is a seeker issue. The lighting and design of the plazas seems like it's something that could continue to go forward in site plan approval, just if we're looking at time. So I don't know, what does the board think about that?
I was just thinking, whole a site plan, floor plan, elevations, and just do a full design package, and then it may be sort of lengthy because it is a big project, but I think it will be beneficial to have it all in one place and one line in the sand that we can all agree this is where we're headed, and so we can move into July with some potential traction.
I agree with the package. That's a great idea. It's just what the presentation, what we want to focus on for the discussion on the 23rd. We probably want to tailor that to that. What.
Yeah. Okay. And from that, it might be beneficial if any of the board members get their packet and have a few things they want to talk about. If you could tell us ahead of time what those things want to be, maybe that's a good way to handle that, is if there's any comments from the board after they receive their packet next week, we can sort of pick on those things as the agenda to discuss.
Okay.
I mean, I think we covered 3 important ones. Maybe there's 3 or 4, but it's the setback along the north. It's the materiality issues, and it's the public space and garage design. I don't, to me, those are the 3 big ones. And then there's, let's talk about those, but then let's get into the seeker and figure that out, and review that. Okay.
All right.
One last thing, Lisa, just as a quick topic. I know we talked a little bit about a couple of the items as it relates to activation of the street and the use of the conference center in the space that were brought up in the public hearing last month. I just want to be sure that's on everybody's radar to tackle succinctly in our process here.
I would suggest that, I mean, we discussed it and yeah, we will do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Couple other details just for the board's information. We will be headed toward a zoning variance for the height and the rear yard. It's not an action for this month, but for next month it would be. So that'll be, we'll outline that in our packet as well. Some of the permitting related big pieces.
What are those briefly? I'm not sure I'm aware of that, or maybe I have heard of it and just didn't remember.
Yeah, the height variance is for the Sky Terrace that's proposed. It's an amenity space for residents on the 12th floor. And
it's just the roof of the one room in the 12th floor is higher than the allowed height.
Yep. And then the rear yard is, we're basically proposing a building that is in the same footprint as the garage is today, but because of the property line changes, because this is city land and we're basically redrawing that property line, we're almost right on the property line right now, and the alley remains city property. Andy, is that a correct description?
Correct. Yeah, we have the 12-foot right of way that's already exists in the north part of the parcel. And then we have our buildings, the new property line is pretty much on that edge. So there is a setback, if you will. It's just with the new property line, we're going to be within a foot of the rear property line.
I'll provide a summary of that in the FIF. Yep.
Yeah.
And just one sort of wordsmithing thing here, Lisa, on the agenda. It does say 218 permanently affordable apartments, and I think I just heard 213. I just want to make sure that
218.
Oh, it's
218.
218. Okay, thank you.
218.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, well, this helps us a lot. So thank you all, and looking forward to later this month.
Thank you.
Okay. See you soon.
Bye, y'all.
Okay.
So I haven't seen the samples. Can we come into City Hall to check them out?
You know, that was one of the things that I was, yes, I think so. I was curious what the board wanted to do about the samples. I could set them up in the lobby. I could, you know, there's various options, but for anybody who wants to see them, you definitely want to see them, Emily. What about you, Mitch? I need to ask the rest of the board what they think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people would be interested.
All right, I'll find a place. I'll
Yeah,
find a place to
it's
set them up and tell people they can do that.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So how much time will we have on the, let me see, I guess it's right in front of me.
Yeah, let me
for
see.
that project. Like seems like some, do you give the same amount of time for every project? Is that how we do this? I should know that by now.
Here, I'm gonna look at the, we can adjust it depending on how much time it needs. And this seems to certainly would need more time. The Asteri.
Yeah, it seems like it's one that needs more time.
So what did I say? I gave it, yeah, it needs more time. You see, the problem with the meeting is going till, I think it's 10. It's a very big meeting. Both the Asteri project and the Rimland project have a lot of moving pieces, which was kind of why I was thinking to try to limit the conversation to, you know, topics that we could get into in greater detail and try to, but I don't know. I mean, I can get talking
about the massing.
About what?
I don't mind just talking about the massing for Esteri because that seems most directly related to the fee. You know, the stucco can wait. The public space can continue. The public space needs to be part of it now. The stucco can wait.
I mean, I can just give them, or I can just give them more time, and you know.
I mean, if we're going to, it's almost like these things. Like we're going to 10, might as well go to 10:30. You know, I'm awake. You know.
Do you also feel the same about if we're going to 10:30? We might as well go to 11. Is that is that still good? Is that
a 5-hour board meeting? I'm not going to speak for others, but
yeah.
I mean, these are important.
It takes,
yeah. Talking about. I mean, are there other projects that we could really trim back, like the Eastwood Avenue special permit, etc.? It's like a 5-minute.
That's 5 minutes.
You know, it's nothing really. I mean, it's important.
Well, one thing we could do, yeah, we can do that. I think I gave it a very small amount of time.
I mean,
also
the
with
Cherry Street projects that's going to be an important conversation, right?
Yeah. Yep. I can also trim back the 209 Hudson Street, especially since they didn't come to just preliminary and final subdivision approval.
And I also think you can trim back Brindley Street. You know, those presentations tend to go a little bit long each time, and we've seen it many times now. So let's just get on with that one.
Okay, I can tell him not to present, and we can just review the part 3.
Yeah, yeah. And City Harbor, I don't know. Oh, we're doing design review.
Yeah. We hadn't done design review yet, so that will take a little bit of time.
What does that entail? Design review for City Harbor? I'm not.
So we hadn't really looked at the building facades yet, and it has to be consistent with the waterfront design guidelines. You know, with Carpenter Circle, we spent a lot of time on the actual design of the buildings, and with City Harbor, we spent time to the degree that it had to do with the variance, but not beyond that. So we know that the materials are going to be darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. But we don't really have the level of detail about the design yet. So I don't think yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that, you know, technically it would be good to have a special meeting just for the Green Street projects, and possibly we could do that in July, maybe have a special meeting if people are willing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because that could be a short.
Yeah, I think that would be
maybe an hour long to just deal with both of those projects.
Yeah, and at some point we need a single drawing or set of drawings that looks at the elevation of Green Street from Cayuga to Aurora, you know, like an elevation and perspectives along the way. You know, it's one graphic style, like what this is all going to look like eventually, or how it's going to come together. I feel like we're looking at it in these pieces.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, maybe I add to the planning board agenda discussion of a special meeting sometime in the middle of July for just an hour and a half, where we can focus on just the Green Street projects. Are you two willing to do that, do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that, because and so we need unified perspectives. And it was mentioned at the last meeting, what we haven't done for either of the projects, and I don't know what you think about it, is also we haven't really done view studies. I mean, we've done renderings and axiomatic drawings, but not views from different areas. Right. And I think we need those too.
And do we have shade and shadow studies, shade and sun?
For
the project?
Asteri did
we
that.
Did for Asteri.
Asteri did, but the Rimland project didn't.
So that project needs it.
Okay, so after this meeting, I will reach out to the whole board and see if they'd be willing to do a mid-July special meeting just for the Green Street projects. And so it will take some pressure off of this month. Mm-hmm. And also you have this, you have this special meeting. You want to meet on June 30th to talk about how to
Yeah.
integrate some of the,
Community-based issues. Yeah, that's right.
and so we don't want to take that time, and and I think they need more time to prepare too. So, and I'm thinking that the best way to do the June 30th meeting would be as a retreat instead of as a public meeting. As long as you're not talking about specific projects, you can have a retreat and it doesn't have to be,
I think that's fair because we're just gathering our thoughts at this point.
Right. It doesn't have to be live streamed. And so, one of the questions I would have for the group is, do you want it to be a Zoom meeting? There could meet in person if it were outside somewhere, I suppose, if you wanted to. We can't do it in City Hall, but do you think that's worth mentioning, or should we just do it as Zoom?
I would love to do it outside if we can. That would be great. If people want to, whatever everyone's comfortable with, but outside sounds good to me.
Okay.
We do enough Zooming these days.
Yeah, oh my God. So I'll add special meeting. To this. Okay. All right. Anything else?
I think so. So we didn't see the Cherry Street projects today. Why?
Yes, because they decided to not move forward in July. I don't know if that means they're going to take a longer break than July after the zoning changes. I don't know if you were updated, but the Common Council did ultimately decide not to restrict the facade length to 100 feet or any length. They did restrict a little bit more the lot coverage. And so I think that meant that 110 Cherry might have to be redesigned. I can't remember. Anyways, so that happened the first week of the month. So they felt like it was too quick to turn around and come back to the planning board. So they told me they don't want to come in June. So I'll keep you updated if they decide they want to come in July.
So they're not coming to the board in June.
They're not. No.
So the agenda, we can scratch those off the agenda.
Oh, is it on the agenda?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Isn't it? Am I looking at the right thing here?
The planning board agenda that I emailed to you. No, they're not on there.
Okay, I guess the one in my packet is what
Yeah, yeah, they're not on there, unfortunately. I mean, for our time, so. Okay, well,
right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
I'm curious what happened to Rob, but
I'll reach out to him and see what's going on. Okay.
And also the 209 Hudson.
Yes. That one doesn't surprise me as much.
Keep us posted.
I will.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Have a good day.